Hi friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me here on Friday for my new Fandom Friday series. I am going to be using some Spellbinders products from their storytelling collection. It's a bunch of scrapbooking and just other memory making supplies, but we're going to use them to create some fandom cards today. Now, I do get a lot of my Spellbinders supplies in sample form, so they are in some Ziploc baggies, but I do have a visual link below, or a visual supply list link, where you can see a little bit better what it looks like in the packaging. So I have a lot of dies, and then I'm going to be using the Magic Sentiments press plate and dies for a sentiment. So I'm back now. I took a little break and did a ton of die cutting off camera, and I'm showing you all my different trays of the different parts I need to put together. So I'm going to start with the Castle Tails Etched dies. And I picked different colored cardstocks, a mixture of Lawn Fawn and Spellbinders cardstock. I just picked what I had in my stash to die cut pieces of the castle as inspired by Cinderella's castle. More so the Cinderella castle in Florida, like the actual Magic Kingdom castle, than the movie, because the cartoon movie is more like all white. But the original castle, I think it's still kind of pinkish right now, if I remember correctly. But the original castle was a pretty kind of white, soft gray color. So I die cut all of the castle pieces out of a soft white gray cardstock. And then I'm also bringing in a darker gray and I'm trimming it to fit behind the windows of my castle pieces. I did use my magic mat when I was cutting the larger castle piece that I just glued the gray behind. And some of my bricks embossed and some of them cut all the way through. It's a fun little mixture, but I did make sure to cover the back where there was a die cut opening for these three pieces with that darker gray cardstock. And again, that's just so with the bricks and the windows have something that creates, a background. There's also a drawbridge piece that I cut out of some Dune cardstock, so kind of a craft brown color. This will eventually, as I put the card together, get hidden by my card assembly, but I love this little kind of gate drawbridge opening. It's so cute. It's just a fun touch. It even has embossed lines like wood panels. I think that's one of my favorite parts about the die. Now each of the different castle pieces have a blue top that I die cut, and before I glue that to the castle, I did glue the little flag kind of peeking out behind the top of the castle, the roof, I guess. I don't know my castle pieces, but I believe that would be a roof. And I just glued the flag behind it, so it's sandwiched between the blue and the castle. So you can see here, just gluing those layers together. Now I really wanted the part of the flag, the flag pole, to look gold to match all of the die cut gold details I'm going to add. So before I finish putting my castle together, I will grab a gold gel pen and just kind of add that gold in without having to paper piece this very tiny flag. You can see I'm adding the rest of the castle elements, that these are all in gold, and then I'll assemble the other two smaller castle pieces the same way. Each of the little windows have a little windowsill that I cut out of this brushed gold cardstock that matches the rest of the gold of the castle, and I'm just using a little jewel picker, a craft pick tool to pick those up and place those onto my castle. With that, that will finish the assembly of the castle. I'm not going to glue my castle together quite yet. I'm going to add them to my card and attach them to the card, and when I attach them, it'll look put together. Moving on, we're going to put together the Fairytale Carriage etched dies, and again, this time I went more with the movie inspiration. The pumpkin turns into a carriage that's very like baby blue color, and so I use that to cut out the carriage part as well as the wheels. I'm using light pink to be the backer of of my carriage. In the movie, she has a darker pink curtain look inside of the carriage, and it looks like it's a lighter pink on the inside when the fairy godmother is turning the pumpkin into a carriage. So that's where I got my colors from. So I am adding just a piece of pink cardstock to the back. I made it large enough that it also covers the back of the heart, and that I did die cut additionally in gold so I could tuck a little gold heart in there later. Now I know that the die, you're supposed to actually glue these pieces, the curtain pieces, like completely inside of the carriage. I didn't really think about that when I was gluing the pink backing, and I ended up not being able to get all of the curtains inside the carriage, but I think it looks kind of cute with the curtain pieces sticking out a bit. I added that gold heart, and I did add the gold crown, but I added it behind the cute details of the blue carriage. I'm attaching the blue wheels to the carriage, and I'm using my gold gel pen again to just add a little bit of gold in the center of those wheels. And I did add gold to the step where the princess would be stepping into the carriage. And I also added gold where the curtains are kind of bunched up, since that is actually supposed to be tucked behind. It looked kind of funky, so I just added a little bit of gold so the curtains look like they're tied back with something. I did add a little bit more glue to make sure those wheels were securely attached to my carriage, and that will finish off that lovely blue pumpkin carriage. For our second card, I'm going to be using the Dancin Fairy Twinkle Etched dies. Although my fairy won't be dancing, I'm just going to glue her together without an interactive element. It would be really fun to have her, look like she's dancing, but I didn't want that for my card. So I did die cut all of the fairy skin tone pieces out of some Dune cardstock. I wanted her to have a bit of a darker feature. And I die cut again the face out of some pink cardstock, so I had pink cheeks. I did not die cut the eyes out of black cardstock. For that, I just used a gel pen and colored the cardstock that was already in her eyes. I did add a piece of repositionable tape to the back of the face, so as I was gluing the cheek pieces in, there was something for them to stick to. I glued on her hair, which I die cut out of yellow, and her cute green dress. Both layers I did out of a bright green. And again, I did glue her legs to the back instead of making her interactive. I added the little belt. Again, everything is in that green color because she's inspired by Tinkerbell, if you haven't guessed yet. And she wears a completely green outfit. So I did everything out of that fun, bright green color. Her wand is dark gray with a yellow star. It's the same yellow I did her hair in. I think it would also be really cute out of some gold glitter paper, and I thought about that after I did all my die cutting, but that would look great as well. Her little shoes are green as well, and I did die cut her wings out of some Pixie Dust Sparkle cardstock, so a white glittery cardstock, so they looked very magical. Looking back, I wish I would have added some pops of color or something to add the little white kind of poofy things that she has on her shoes, but I think you get the effect that it's Tinkerbell. Next, I've moved on to building my hill or mountain or ground from the Over the Rainbow Etched dies, and that's what my castle is going to be sitting on top of. So I die cut the hill and the bushes out of some dark green cardstock, and I added the little path out of some craft cardstock. I also cut the rainbow from the Over the Rainbow Etched dies out of some glittery gold cardstock, all three pieces in one. And then I also die cut out some white clouds for my castle scene and the little kind of magical four-pointed stars out of some mirror gold cardstock. I've moved on to putting together my magic sentiment. The word magic is die cut out of the same mirror gold cardstock, and the shadow is die cut out of some white cardstock. So just layering those together so it has a nice shadow look. I love sentiment dies like this because it gives me more on the back to be able to glue or pop up my sentiments on my cards. So I have everything that is layered, all layered together, glued together. I'm going to work on my second sentiment. So my magic will be with my Tinkerbell, but I wanted to pick a sentiment from the Magic Sentiments press plate and dies, but I'm going to foil it because I'm really leaning into the gold for my sentiments on this card. And the press plate is one big plate for all the sentiments, and the die cuts out all the sentiments at the same time, which is wonderful. So I'm going to foil all of my sentiments, even though I'm just going to use one on this card, and that way I have more sentiments for future projects. So I'm using some gold hot foil, and I cut it to be slightly larger than my press plate. I'm also going to cut a piece of white cardstock that is also slightly larger than my press plate, and I will layer all of these together on my Glimmer hot foil system that I have off camera. I did add one extra shim. I use the Better Press plate shims, the extra shims that I don't use in my Better Press system, as shims for my Glimmer hot foil. So I have 3 of those going through, just because the Better Press plates are a little bit thinner than Glimmer plates. I like having just a bit more of a shim when I run those through my die cutting machine to press that gold foil onto the paper. So here I am trying to figure out what I'm going to do for this white piece of paper. I end up trimming it to be 3 by 4 1/4, so that way it will fit on an A2 card with an even border all the way around this piece of white cardstock. I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending to create my sky. So I just wanted to make sure my castle and ground would fit on this panel, and it looks like it does. Well, it does because I left it in the video, so it definitely fits everything. The only thing I am a little bit bummed is that I didn't take into consideration that I wanted my carriage to be under the ground. So I could have cut a new piece to be slightly shorter so my carriage could fit on the scene. Again, I really liked having that detail on the castle of the drawbridge, but it ends up getting covered just because of how I wanted this panel to look on my card. The foiling ended up turning out perfect, so I used the coordinating die to cut out all the sentiments, and I'm going to use Dreams Come True. I'm going to now move on to ink blending that panel that I trimmed down, and I'm going to use tumbled glass and shaded lilac along with my blending brushes that I have dedicated to distress oxides to create my sky background. Now my tumbled glass I think needs to be replaced because it's looking a little dark. I think I mixed my blues too much and my tumbled glass isn't as light as it used to be, but that's okay, it's still a pretty blue color. And then I am adding shaded lilac on top, so it creates kind of an ombre look between that purple and blue on my Fairytale scene that I'm creating. It's not a wonderful blend. I think I could have gone back and forth a little more, but most of that is going to be covered. So I just really wanted to make sure that I had a nice, pretty blue sky background. I'm grabbing my clear shimmer glitter brush from scrapbook.com, and I'm just squeezing so the glitter gets into the brush part and then tapping it so that way I can have a nice shimmery background as it dries. Now I'm going to work on assembling my scene on this piece. So I'm going to trim off just a little bit from the bottom of the paper. As you can see, I'm going at kind of an angle. The ground die cut piece has a curve to it on the bottom, so I just wanted to hide those pieces and it not show underneath the ground when I adhere this to my panel. So I'm going to use some 1mm foam adhesive. This is from scrapbook.com. It's 1 inch wide, but I do trim it down and get it to fit what I need for my project. So I added some foam adhesive to this green piece, and I'm going to attach it so it creates that 4 1/4 by 3 panel still when I have the green piece attached to my background panel. Now that I have my ground in place, we'll work on adding the castle. I'm just going to glue these straight down with liquid adhesive and tuck it behind the green hill with the bushes. Since this is the center part of my castle, I'm going to add it to the center. It lines up almost perfectly with my path. I think I should have scooted over my path just a little bit to the left, but it works. And then I added liquid adhesive to my 2 side pieces, and I'm gluing those down so they overlap on the center part of my castle just a tiny bit, but yet still tucked behind those bushes so you don't see where the castle is touching the ground. Now I'm adding in my clouds. I'm going to tuck in one cloud behind one of my castle pieces before that glue dries. And I just created a fun little pattern of my 3 clouds behind my castle on the sky. I did die cut 2 more pieces of my sentiment out of some white cardstock, just some scrap cardstock. So that way my sentiment has a little bit of dimension to it without having to add foam. It's a very dainty sentiment and I didn't want to have to trim foam pieces. So I'm just layering up on my cardstock to have it pop up off the card a bit. I added liquid adhesive behind my sentiment and I'm adding it to the top part of my panel so it's in the sky above the castle. Here's where I realized that the carriage was going to cover part of my castle, which I was a little sad about, but you know what? It's okay. We're going to make it work. So I have an A2 top folding card base out of some sturdy white cardstock. Here I was thinking, oh, I could just lift it up a bit, but I didn't like the way it looked, so it's fine. My carriage is going to cover my castle a little bit. It happens. It's okay. I really wanted the carriage to be the main part of the card anyway, so we're just going to not worry about the castle being partially covered. So once I knew where I wanted everything to go, I'm going to add liquid adhesive to my carriage where it overlaps on the green cardstock for the scene that I created. So just going to glue that down. And then I'll use some foam adhesive on the back of this panel and center it onto my card base. I like that the clouds kind of come off the panel as well as the wheels of my carriage, so it just kind of escapes the scene a little bit, brings the scene out past the panel. So I added that 1mm foam adhesive to the back of this panel and I'm adhering it to the center of the card base. Here's a close-up look at how my card turned out. I love the shine of the gold and the hot foiled sentiment. It's a really cute card and I hope you like how I adapted these dies into the Cinderella fandom for the first card. So let's move on to the second card. This one is going to be a little more on the simple side. I really want that gold of the magic and my rainbow to really pop off and be, you know, what brings life to this card. So I just grabbed some green pattern paper. This is from Time for Tea Designs Gorgeous Gingham 6x6. I'm not really sure it's still available. I did link it below. But you know, I used what was in my stash that had a green color that I thought matched the green of my Tinkerbell dress as best as I could. I wanted to bring a little interest to the card by using my corner chomper from We Are Makers to cut or to chomp off the corners of the green gingham paper as well as the white card base. Again, this is an A2 top folding card base. I'll go ahead and add a little bit of gold splatter to it. I'm using Starry Colors pigment watercolors, and I'm going to use that blue gold color on the left. So I added some water, grabbed a paintbrush, and I'm just going to splatter some of that gold watercolor on the card. It will dry back a bit, but it's going to have a really pretty shine to it when the light hits it just right. Now, I'd already completed all the steps I needed to, and since I'm an impatient crafter, I just used my heat gun on the lowest setting to dry that down. Now I'm going to take my gold rainbow and I'm going to add it to my card. It's going to be kind of off-tilted because I want the ends of the rainbow to be hidden behind my magic sentiment. I added foam adhesive behind magic, this time in 2mm, and attached that to the bottom of the rainbow on this gingham panel. Now I'm going to go ahead and add this panel to my card base. So I'm just going to use some tape runner to put my adhesive on the back of the panel and attach that to the center of the card base. After that, I just need to pop up my beautiful fairy. Again, I'm going to use my 2mm foam adhesive and I'm going to attach her to the card. I want her to be center on the card, just right above the sentiment. So it kind of looks like she's the one, you know, creating the kind of fairy tale gold magical rainbow behind her with her magic wand. I'm adding my 4 little 4-pointed diamond stars to my card using liquid adhesive and a jewel picker. Once I had them where I wanted them, I just pick it up, add the glue, and place it right back down. That will finish off my second card. Again, my fandom inspired card by Tinkerbell. Here's a close-up look at how cute she turned out. Love it. Again, I think making her feet swing would also have been cute, but I love it just like it is. But I do also really love my Cinderella card. Let me know which of the two fandom cards you like the most. Do you love them equally? It's okay if you like one more than the other. Just let me know in the comments, and let me know a fandom you'd like to see in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!